Good morning, friends. I am Patty Elhoff, the author of Upcycle with Decoupage. Upcycle with Decoupage is available online, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and through my website, which is where all of my napkins come from. And the link to that is right below this video in the description box. If you just click on the link, it will take you right over to my website. That's where you can purchase the napkins. And sometimes we don't have the exact ones you're looking for, but I still put a whole different array of napkins for you over there along with the other products like this one. And here's what we'll be working on today. I took this washboard. Now this is brand new, but it's got a vintage look to it. And all I did was added some paint, some decoupage, and a transfer over it and turned it into this. And one other thing I wanted to mention, some people attach a piece of wood to these right here, which you can also paint and decorate, and they turn this into a functional shelf. So if you're to hang this on the wall in your laundry room, you could place detergent and fabric softener and other things like that right on the shelf. So without further ado, here's how we can get started doing this project. The first thing I did was I took a cream colored chalk paint, and I'm using chalk paint because it works on metal, on wood, it works on almost every surface, and you don't need to sand or prime. And I applied 2 coats of this to the front and the back. Now when everything dried, I took a white colored chalk paint and I applied it right to this top section. When that white paint dried, I went back in with a little bit more of the cream color and just added it to a few spaces right there also. Now you want to, I went to the Graphics Fairy, which most of you are familiar with, and they have all of these free images and printouts. You want to make sure that you print your image in reverse, especially if you've got writing or script on it. You also want to make sure it fits the area that you're working in. So only print out the size that you need to fit right in here. Then you want to take a smaller paintbrush and carefully use your decoupage glue, or you can use gel medium for this. I am using a matte decoupage glue and I am covering my copy. Now there's instructions on the Graphics Fairy for how to print these in reverse. It's not complicated at all. We want to cover this copy just over the writing, not the whole rest of the page, and put this aside to dry. Now this is really important. You do not want to cut this image out or your writing out. You want to tear this once this page has dried. And it can take about 15 or 20 minutes. You can even put it in an oven at 175 degrees for about 5 minutes. Turn the oven off and let this sit in the oven and cool off. That's really going to cement this ink onto the page. But make sure you tear this when you cut it. What happens is, if you use scissors, you create a sharp edge, and when you're trying to remove the paper on the back, sometimes it can get really stuck onto your surface, and we're trying to remove all of the paper. We only want our transfer or the words or the image that you have to show through. I'm taking my matte decoupage glue again, and I'm covering the surface only of where I'm going to put the transfer. I put way too much decoupage glue on there, as usual. I'm too heavy-handed. Sorry about that. So you want to cover this and take your image, you flip it over, flip it down, place it down, and you want to use your fingers, a brayer, a spoon, and you want to push that excess glue out of the sides there. Take a warm, clean washcloth and remove any of the glue that comes out of those sides also. Now that everything is dry, you want to take a paintbrush, a chip brush. You can even use just a damp rag, and you want to wet or dampen this paper and start to peel it away. You can use your fingers or you can use the rag. You don't want to be too overzealous here because you can pull up some of the image, especially if you used an inkjet print. Now, some people tell me they do fine with inkjet prints. Some write me and say, why isn't this inkjet print working? It keeps coming up with the paper. I always recommend you go to a copy center and get a laser print. Now, we just want to remove all of this paper. Now, when the paper is dry and you've removed all of those little pieces of balled up paper, you want to take your napkin, and again, people are always asking me, where do you get your napkins? They are on my website at the link below. There are several different napkins on the website. There's usually free shipping. I always try to get you guys free shipping, especially if you belong to Amazon Prime. And what I'm going to do is cut out the images that I want to use. You don't want to separate the napkin until you're all done cutting. And these smaller scissors come in so handy when you're working with napkins and cutting napkins. And I'm going to do a dry run first before I decoupage anything down, making sure I like the placement of these. And I'm using a dry method today, which means I've separated the napkins, I've placed them where I wanted them, and I held the napkin down. And I took this feather brush because it's very light and airy. I put decoupage glue on it, and I held the napkin in place and then used the brush to decoupage this down. And I did this on the opposite corner and the upper top left side of this also. And you know what, guys, I thought I had the camera on as I decoupaged this piece onto the bottom. I did the same thing. I took this Eiffel Tower with flowers around it, I placed it down dry and these butterflies and held it in place, and then used the feather brush with the decoupage glue on it to go into these grooves and to secure or decoupage these other images down. By the way, that's called a fan brush, not a feather brush. So I just decoupaged the rest of these images over the surface here. And I put this aside to dry. It only took about 15 to 20 minutes. Then I went back over the surface with my decoupage glue. So I put one coat of decoupage glue over the whole surface, let this dry, and then I came back and I did the second to last step, and that was to add some splatter onto the surface, splatter paint. Now I took this antiquing medium and I poured a little bit on the plate, and I took this toothbrush, a lovely toothbrush that is never used for teeth. I got it specifically for crafting purposes, and I kept blotting it or pouncing it into the paint. Now this can get very sloppy. You want to make sure you splatter some of the paint off first and then go around your project. I wanted to go a little bit heavier in the corners, so that's what I did. And not only can you use this paint, this medium, for the splattering effect, but if you go a little too heavy, you can wipe it off. You can also dilute it a little bit like I did up top here. Let me close in on that so you can see it still gives it a little bit of an aged look. So I just used a damp washcloth and went over that just to age it a little bit. And then I'm going to go over it a little again with the splatter brush, go around it until I'm all done. This dries pretty quickly within a few minutes. Really, you want to make sure that it's dry before you do the final step to this, which is add your top coat or your varnish. And you want to add at least 2 coats of varnish, especially if this is going into the basement or if it's in a damp area like some laundry rooms and laundry spaces are. You want to make sure that top coat and the varnish seals that and protects it from any type of humidity. And you can get this top coat on my website. I do recommend this Liquitex. It's also available in the art supply department of your craft stores to give this a very flat, matte finish. I don't want any shine on this, so I'm using this Liquitex. And here is our completed project for the week. our vintage French washboard using decoupage and a transfer. And don't forget, guys, Upcycle with Decoupage is also on Facebook if you'd like to go over and click like and follow the page. I do try to get back to you as soon as I can. There seem to be a lot of questions and comments coming in, which I love. I just can't seem to get to them quickly enough. There's also a page on Facebook called Mason Jar Madness and Decoupage that you can go to, and they're very helpful if you need some help sooner than I can give it to you. Please go ahead down to the red subscribe button underneath this video and click on that. It's free, doesn't cost you a thing. And in the description of the video is my website link where you can go and get all of the supplies you need. In the meantime, guys, I am so happy to hear from you, happy to make these videos for you and help you out where I can. And I will see you guys next week with another video. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.